And so this is it, the final slides of the four-man bobsleigh World Cup season. We're at Eagles in Austria at the Olympic Sliding Centre above the city of Innsbruck, nestling in the heart of the Tyrol mountain regions of Austria. Hello everybody, welcome back as we get into the second and final heat. Last World Cup race of the season. The battle for the Crystal Globe is well alight. This morning, 4 women's sled crammed into a tenth of a second. There's more room needed for a 4-man, so there are only 3 in the top 10 of a second. Johannes Lochner, with a great run, broke the track record to take the lead, but he ended up 3rd after the first heat, because following him down the mountain was Great Britain's Brad Hall, who needs a win here to take the Crystal Globe, the trophy at the end of the season as the best 4-man driver. He too broke the track record to take a slender lead of 0.03 of a second over Johannes Lochner. And a couple of minutes after him came Francesco Friedrich, the man who snatched the lead of the Crystal Globe race yesterday with victory in the first of our 2 4-man races. He broke his own track record set yesterday afternoon, and he took the lead by 0.07 of a second. So there is Francesco, not quite sure what he's... Oh, just having a little check down the run into turn 1 and 2, trying to figure out where he can find a way to lose even less speed. Brad Hall, like everybody else, limbering up in the parking lot outside the start area here. Final race on this track as well, because it will be changed. The lower part below the Kreisel will change to have a new run down and back up the hill into the finish area, adding a couple of extra corners and lengthening the track and hopefully reducing the drama at the finish. So this will be the final 4-man race of the season, the last ever on this track, which means the track record, if it is broken again this afternoon, and I suspect Francesco wants to be the first and only possible man, maybe, to get under 50 seconds, that will be the last track record set here. Well, that is how they finished in the first heat, and look how tiny some of the margins are between the athletes, not just in the lead group, but all the way down the field. 21 sleds started. Drazen Silic of Croatia, having to sit in, didn't really stand much of a chance of making it through into the second heat. The fast 20 go through. In reverse order, they will compete in the final run of the season. So, we will start with Frenchman David Bechler and his crew, then Mattia Variola, Mihai Tentea, and so on down through the order into our top 10. And then working our way down to the leader, Francesco Friedrich, who will go last, looking for his 5th consecutive 4-man Crystal Globe, and Brad Hall for his very first. David Bechler with Floristan Amps, a debutante, Alan Allais, a more experienced man at 3, who comes from Roman Heinrich's team, and Alexis Flavin at the back of the sled. David turns 50 next week on Wednesday. And this is his passion, his pride. His first ever World Cup race was yesterday. His second is today. And they get us underway, starting with a 5:49 in the first heat. If they can find anything extra here, that will definitely help. 5:53. So the track has been in record pace all week long. The ice is absolutely beautifully prepared. Some build-up of ice on corners where you don't normally find it, which has made the drivers work a little harder for their speed. But it has seen the track record broken in the men's skeleton, in the women's skeleton, in the monobob, in the 4-man yesterday, in the women's bobsleigh today, big skid, and in the 4-man already. Out of corner 9, drifting down to corner 10. And David Bechler gets the final heat of the season underway. His first run, a 51.86, and his second is a 51.79. That's exactly what he wants, to just improve. He didn't quite have as much at the start, but they do get it down quicker in the second run, and that is what it is all about. So safely down and done. 2 World Cup appearances in one weekend for David Bobsleigh and the crew. And the new boys today, Florestan Arms and Alexis Flamer at the back, both making their World Cup debut today.
Yeah, top. C'était super, bravo à tous. Merci.
A charming addition to the sliding family, David Bobsleigh. Well, next up is Italy's Mattia Variola. Alex Pagnini at 2, Fabio Batti at 3, Jose Abu at 4. Variola, former brakeman, become driver. And everybody in Italy looking with great expectation towards Milano Cortina 2026. Variola, just 27 years of age now. This is his 11th four-man World Cup start as a driver. And they have a sled program underway. Build of the Milano Cortina Olympic track will start in the spring. 5:21 getaway. And they're working on driving, recruiting, bringing in the speed, stepping up at the start, and bringing the sleds on as well. He has a handy lead from the first heat over David Bobsleigh. And not too far behind Mihai Tentea of Romania. Just a couple of driving errors will easily eclipse the 1200s that Mihai had in his pocket. He'll come down next, of course, 103.4 kilometers an hour, 64.2 miles an hour. And down here is where the speed really picks up. They'll be doing nearly 80 miles an hour at the line by the time they get across it.
Yeah, bravo les gars.
And a 79.6 mile an hour speed for Mattia Variola. Warm applause from their French counterparts, who now leave the leader's box. A 50.86 slide compared to 51.2, so a much better run from Mattia Variola. Didn't get in quite as easily, got himself hooked up on the bungees that run vertically down the center of the sled to hold the D-rings off the floor so the driver can grab them. Didn't quite get in as quickly and neatly as he would have liked. A moment of panic, but he didn't worry. A nice run down here from 9 into 10. Nice, smooth, straight lines. Mattia Variola with the lead then, 2 down, 18 to go. Next up, Mihai Tentea of Romania. And new boy Constantin Dinescu coming in instead of Ciprian De Rocci, who must have started every race behind Mihai, I don't know, since Mihai was knee-high, probably. So the 20-year-old makes his debut at 2. He has had 1 four-man race in his life. This is his second. Mihai Pakianu, the ex-skeleton slider, he's at 3. And 19-year-old Georg Yodash, he is at 4. 5:25 getaway, quicker than their first as well. So are we going to venture down towards the start record? That seems a little unlikely, but it's always possible, I suppose. Everybody who's in the very low 5s, don't think we've been into the 4s yet. 100th in hand over Variola now. It was 1200s. Then he started 400s back. Little tap there coming into the Kreisel. Second best speed, he's in the red. Not a bad exit into the Kreisel, little bump. Third best speed, not going the right way at all, is it? This is actually slower than the Italian and French sleds. Mihai Tentea is going backwards in a hurry. 1200s up, becomes 1900s back. So he's going to drop to second place behind Mattia Variola there on the right-hand side. It's a disappointing way to end his four-man season. 51.24 compared to 51.11 earlier. So Variola out driving his first heat and Mihai not. Little late flop there early on, and look at that, bounces the runners up in the air. Big steer off 9, the timing just wasn't right. Came hard out of the Kreisel as well. Yeah, just a fraction off. And does that mean the track is actually faster now? There's less grip. That is entirely possible. So the fresh spritz between the two runs. So it'll be glassy smooth again. Matej Behonek next for the Czech Republic. And this youngster, again, one of our newcomers in the second half of the season. Only his second four-man World Cup. His debut was yesterday. Made his senior debut in the World Champs last week in four-man because of the absence of Dominic Dvorak. So Matej coming in probably long before he expected into the World Cup. 5:21 getaway, not bad at all from David Beresh, Alice Svoboda and Andrei Razdil. They are struggling to get in, aren't they? You don't see that very often at all. Now, the deal with sitting in a bobsled is basically your legs go around the backside of the guy in front of you. And if you don't get your legs in, if they get caught, then there's nowhere to put them. You can't fold up enough, especially if you're at 3. At 2, sometimes they'll ride cannonball, which is the knees under their chin, which is as uncomfortable as you can imagine. And across the line they come, 51.29. They go down to 3rd place. So the Italians pick up 2 spots. Again, this young crew just not getting in. I think it was Alice Svoboda there at 3. Yeah, look, he looks pretty beaten up. That's an uncomfortable way of riding. If you ever get in a taxi bobsled, they normally take 5 minutes to settle you down. Watch the man at 3 getting in. Now, for some reason, he doesn't get his legs down and around. And then at 2, David Beresh drops in, and he is still not in the sled, and he is still not in the sled. He actually has to get up and get back down. And you can probably imagine that his leg was screaming with cramp at that stage as well, being forced into a very uncomfortable situation. None of that helping the sled. And Matej, yeah, that's one to forget, I'm afraid. But he has made his World Cup and World Championship debut in consecutive weekends, but the other way around. Pat Norton of Canada now. Pat had great speed down the track yesterday, the 30-year-old. With Mathieu Gosselin, David Casero, and William Ashley behind him. 5:40. It's only the 5th four-man World Cup start for Pat Norton. Yesterday was his 4th and his 1st race on this track as well. At least he hasn't had to swap between 2 and 4-man, I suppose, so there is that benefit. He's done all of his training runs in the 4-man sled rather than splitting them between the 2 as you normally would have to do. Had good speed yesterday, had good speed today, has best speed at the moment in the Kreisel and below. In fact, he has been the fastest sled apart from out of the start traps all the way down. Whoa, long and late. It's going to be an uncomfortable ride in the back. Down through the labyrinth, but they come across the line with a 51.10. The Italians remain in the leader's box. It was tight all the way down our field, and he slips behind by 0.09 of a second. He had a 51.08 in the first heat, 51.10 in the second, and he only had 0.15 in hand over Mattia Variola, who found about a 1/4 of a second, enough to pick off 3 consecutive sleds. Well, Pat Norton will know the mistakes that he made. They weren't huge, but just enough. Little late here in 11. That's where Cynthia Appia rolled this morning.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. Pembroke, Charleston Lake, Ottawa. See you next year.
Thanks for coming. Good to see the Canadians back out on ice as ever. Mattia Variola leads, 5 down, 15 to go. Final heat of the 4-man Bobsleigh World Cup at Innsbruck in Austria. 8th and last race of the season, 15 sleds in the year to go. And the first of them is Jeff Gabouat with Carsten Vissering, Paul Rabick and Freddie Harris behind him. This new young crew with Jeff Gabouat. How young? Well, Carsten Vissering, 3rd World Cup, 2nd for Paul Rabick. His first was yesterday, and a 3rd for Freddie Harris. And only an 11th World Cup start in 4-man for their driver, Jeff Gabouat. Yesterday was his first race on this track. Today is his 2nd. His advantage over Mattia Variola. is 23 hundredths of a second. Let's see if they can get a neat run in this rented sled. Freddie Harris at the back trying to wriggle his way slowly down in. Fourth best velocity of the fourth start, 5:36 getaway. Now the Italian started in a 21, and when you multiply that by the first few corners, that leaves Jeff Gabouin on the back foot. Only the fifth best speed as well. Pat Norton was quickest here. Gabouin, just to remind you, in a Swiss rented sled, so drives very differently from what he's used to. So it really responds totally differently. Tiny steering inputs have a big effect, which is not what he's used to at all. He's not going to take it at the line, no, 1900s back. Well, yesterday it was the crew of Patrick Baumgartner that was celebrating in the leaders' box. Today, Mattia Variola's boys have their moment in the sunshine as well. And they have now picked off Jeff Gabouin and Pat Norton and Mate Bouanek and Mihai Tentea. And they're bumping around through those first corners. You see a lot of that from these long four-man sleds. Big late height there. And again, see the runners picked up off the ice as the sled hits hard down into that lower labyrinth onto corner 13. So Gabouin drops not one but two spots back. Mattia Variola still leads as we get to our remaining sled from the Czech Republic. This is Adam Dobesh, the 30-year-old, making his World Cup debut this season with Michal Dobesh, Jakub Prochaska and Antonin Vijas behind him. And Dobesh starting his 6th World Cup race of his career. His first was in Samoritz last season, and his best result, a couple of 11th place finishes. He was 12th yesterday and skids around as they try and settle themselves into the sled. Such a short start here in a four-man sled. You spend half the time sprinting, the other half the time gradually getting into the sled, one by one by one by one. It is not the fastest business in this short start. And I don't think that is going to change either as they work on the track. They could bring the start further back, but you'd have to rebuild the start area and put in refrigeration, and that seems like an awful lot of money for a couple of meters of ice. 3/10 up, holding his advantage over Variola. This is where I think the journey in the leaders' box stops for the Italians. It is 50.91. So down comes Adam Dobesh, only a couple of hundred slower than his first heat. Stop, baby, stop. And into the lead goes Dobesh. That does mean that Mattia Variola will have at least a top 15 finish. Not a bad-looking run from Dobesh, just on the wrong side there, going from the Kreisel down into corner 8. That leaves him late from 8 to 9. And on the exit of 9, well, he doesn't panic, just allows the sled to come off free. Nicely guided down. 15th yesterday, Mattia Variola, his World Cup best. He will be no worse than 15th. Adam Dobesh, no worse than 14th. So now then, in the battle of our Swiss trio, tail end Charlie today is Tino Rona with Fabian Welsch, Luca Rolli and Mattia Hersberger. And Chris Woolley there on the left-hand side, by the skin of his teeth, not having to start in a sled today. He does have a competition license. He has raced again this season, so he could do it, but they just managed to get enough people gathered together for 3 four-man crews. It's been a bit touch and go for the Swiss teams the last couple of weeks. In and down, 55.96 is the time now of the 2 elapsed runs. So 5:14 getaway. He had a 50.82 first heat, which gave him a 700ths of a second advantage over Adam Dobesh. They have outstarted the Czech crew and now lead by 2200ths best speed at the Kreisel. Decent-ish exit. keeping most of the speed on board. Not bad from 9, gets nudged into 10, puts him onto the right side of the track. Out of 11, and then 12, 13, that's a fearsome crossover. Out of 14, hits the wall, brakeman pops up 50.69. They have the lead. So for Timo Rona, it'll be no worse than 13th place. Yesterday he was the second of the Swiss sleds, ahead of Cedric Follador, finished in 9th place, so he's not going to match that today, I don't think. But he had his personal World Cup best yesterday, not just here in Innsbruck, but in any of the tracks he's raced on so far in the World Cup. In what is I have to say, fairly limited exposure. His 6th and 7th World Cup starts both here. And in fact, 4 of his previous World Cup starts have also been in Innsbruck.
10 seconds.
So next up is Jakobs Kalender from Latvia. Behind him, Arnis Bedris, Lauris Kaufmans, and Ivo Kleinberg's back on the sled. He was subbed out yesterday at the last minute and was subbed back in this morning at a fairly equally 11th hour. So again, the Latvians struggling to keep all their guys fit and healthy before we head to Sigulda next week. Of course, you'll only need half the brakemen there, or 1/3 of the brakemen, because it'll be 2-man only, not 4-man. 5:12 to get away. They had 5:11 in the first heat, and that was a very firm top 10 start. As ever with the Latvian crews, you expect them to go well at the start. Kalender is using that speed, the experience of the guys behind him, and their starting power. Little rattle there and a couple of late flops coming down to the Kreisel. Sled's not giving us the speeds for some reason, but he is still 1/10 of a second up. So speed's not too bad. Gets it nicely off corner 9, down into 10. Decent height there. Through 11. And 13. And 14. And across the line, 50.71. Came down in 50.71 in the first heat. Off a 5:11 start. And they just get to the edge of the precipice before dropping onto the rubber mat. So Jakobs Kalender leading by 0.09 of a second over Timo Rona. And his first heat advantage over Rona was at 0.09 of a second. Now, watch the line, the red mark on the wall. Brakeman pops up and hauls on the brakes early. We've seen quite a lot of that. Jakobs Kalender, but it is a fractional difference. Actually not going to affect anybody else's speed. If you pull the brakes on in the track,
10.
it should be a disqualification. But right at the finish line here, particularly because it's so fast and dangerous, I think they are letting that last little bit go. Next up, Li Chunjian of China, 5th fastest starter. Couldn't hold that speed. It gradually ebbed away. Just too many teeny little errors creeping in. And it saw him slipping down to 11th place at the line. He's got 1100s in hand over current leader Jakobs Kalender. Now, can he turn this into a top 10 run? Yesterday finished in 13th spot, so he is improving on his previous best. 5:10 getaway. Nice and quiet in the first couple of corners. Can't avoid touches on the wall like that. 4 to 5, everybody is touching, and then exit of 6 here. Get that little slap going into 7. It's just the way the track is built up, it's almost impossible to avoid. Gaps down to 200s, only the 5th best speed. He's going to be in the blue, which is tied, or in the red, which is behind. Tied to the 100th, into the labyrinth we go. Has not got the speed of the Latvian sled, and across the line they remain tied, 50.80. So Kalender will get at least an 11th place finish, as will Lee. And they too go off onto the rubber. So Lee yesterday in 13th place. Again, pretty decent exit out of corner 9. Nice height up in 10, up to the woodwork like we saw from Francesco Friedrich. And we have a pair of sleds tied for the lead. 10 down, 10 to go to round out the season and decide who wins the Crystal Globe. Well, wherever you are watching from, I hope you have enjoyed what you've seen of the season. And if you haven't seen very much of it, there's always the opportunity to check out the replays of the races, the highlights as well on the IBSF YouTube site. Wherever you're watching across the world, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your support. And hopefully you will continue to enjoy the action for the rest of today and next weekend as well. We'll be in Sigulda in Latvia. We race again on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday will be Skeleton Day in the morning and the afternoon. Saturday, again, monobob and 2-man. And then Sunday, women's bob and 2-man again. And that will round out the 2-man World Cup. And we will already then, of course, know our 4-man champion. That will be decided in the next 40 minutes. And next weekend, we will crown our champions in men and women's skeleton, in monobob, in women's bobsleigh, and in the 2-man. So all of those remain open for negotiation next week in one of the trickiest tracks on the planet, and on one that not many drivers have an awful lot of knowledge of. Kaylee Humphries, for instance, despite having been competitive for 18 years, has never been to Sigulda. Those boys know it well. And here are some fans down at the bottom. Oscar's Melbardis, he can tell you a trick or two. And you can see the British Barmy Army down there as well, supporting Brad Hall and the boys. Great views across the valley. Behind the trees in the foreground, down low in the valley nestles Innsbruck, and right next to my commentary cabin on the roof above the start area, friends and family of Brad Hall and his crew. So 10 sleds remain in the season. Here we go, final 10 sleds. Cedric Follador is in the top 10 with Nicola Mariani, Greg Jones and Dominic Hufschmidt behind him. And outperforming his fellow junior teammate, Timo Rona, in the 4-man today. Rona had the upper hand yesterday with a 9th place finish to the 11th of Follador. Follador in the top 10. And Rona currently lying in 3rd place. So the getaway, 5:19, 5th fastest start so far. We will see quicker. It's all about the hands and the eyes now for Follador. 800s ahead of Lee and Callender. And now down to 500s, and now 800s again. So better speed, so he's reignited the afterburners, if you like. Nice run through the Kreisel. Still the best speed for Follador. Quicker than Rona was at this stage, quicker than Pat Norton, who again had great speed early on and down at the bottom in the run. 1100s up. This is going to see him firmly with a top 10 finish. 50.75. Rico Pater looking on, one of their coaches. Oh, and way off up the rubber. And that gets the distance record for today. It's been a long while since somebody's not crashed and gone right up to that narrow band at the top. The only place normally you get up there is if you're on your side and the brakes aren't working at all. Well, big height early in the Kreisel. I mean, really came straight up on there and I had to drive it off hard. This is the exit of 9. Watch the runner tips again. Not working too hard for their living there. It just allows it to take the little tap and get nudged back away. So while they rescue the sled, there will be a temporary hold, but you can see the sled up in the air there, the brakes on hard. They're just not digging into the ice as the sled's rocking and rolling away. It's just basically pulling the brakes out of the ice again. So down they come. Big smile on the face of Nicola Mariani. Been there, done that. They've got the lead, 9 to go. They may not get to the leaders box before potentially they lose that, because here is our junior world champion in 4-man and the silver medalist in 2-man, by the way, Nico Semler, with Rupert Schenk, Max Neumann, and the experienced Philip Verbeto on the back, who slid originally with Nico Walter's crew. So Semler made his senior debut as the junior world champion in the world 4-man last week. Now makes his World Cup debut, 5:13. Didn't race here yesterday. Christoph Hafer was in the 4-man crew, in the 4-man lineup then for Germany, but Semler gets his World Cup debut as well. 1400s up. Only had 600s over Cedric Follador from the first heat, and there is no speed left. Or the data box isn't working very well. He is doing more than 5 miles an hour. So let's go with the time. And right now, he is 1500s up. He is still going to be the leader at the line. It will be a 9th place finish at worst on his debut for Nico Semler. 50.63 slide. All right, 1300 slower than his first. And he's disappointed with the mistakes that he's made. We'll take a look here, coming down out of the Kreisel, hauls it down kind of late. That sends him skidding down into corner 8, offline, and then woof, hard take on there. Off 9, watch the runners. Well, not too much work going on. He steered a little earlier in the turn and just held that steer all the way down. So 5:13 start, and they finish with the lead. 8 to go. Big day yesterday for Patrick Baumgartner and his crew. First ever top 6 finish in a World Cup race for the Italian. Eric Fantattini, Robert Mattia and Lorenzo Bellotti hanging out in the leaders box as several other sleds fell behind them and loving life while they did so. 8th after the first heat. 1500s out of the top 6. The Youth Olympic champion on this track in 2012, Patrick Baumgartner, finally coming of age this season. 5:11 getaway. So that gives him 5 whole hundreds over junior world champion Nico Semler. And he's extending that to 1300s up. Now, yesterday must have given him confidence. Little bump there. It's a little rocky getting on to 6. 3rd best speed. Pretty decent exit out of the Kreisel. Best speed of all now, 64.6 miles an hour, quicker than Pat Norton. He's pulling away, 1700s up. This could be Baumgartner moving again towards a top 6 finish. For the 2nd day in succession, across the line cleanly, 50.50, just 300 slower than his first heat. They're getting out to stop the sled. So 1600s up on Nico Semler, and only 300s of that was from the first heat. So he outdrove Semler in the 2nd. It wasn't the most clean and comfortable of loads, was it? Watch the runners here. That late little steer, and then just releases the steering, allows the sled to run freely off 9, down the tubes into 10. That's a nice line into corner 10, helps to build that speed. Vai. Riccioli there at the bottom, helping with the sled. 7 to go. Final Swiss sled is that of Mickey Vogt. 400s out of a top 6 finish. Cyril Bieri back in the lineup again today after being taken out yesterday. Silvio Weber and Sandro Mikkel. Mikkel in his 25th 4-man World Cup race. The man right at the back in the centre there. 5:10 getaway. They're in 7th place. They finished in 8th place yesterday. Mickey Mickey Vogt yet to take a four-man World Cup medal. His best result has been a 4th place. And they drop behind. Got behind Baumgartner early, and he's making mistakes. Ooh, got a lot of corner 6. Really got on hard and late. 101 kilometers an hour, not enough. Right now, the gap from first to second is 1600s, and he is 800s back halfway down. He might drop 2 spots. Baumgartner will stay in the leader's box. He's coming back, though, at the bottom of the track, Mickey Vogt. Swiss sleds are quick. Are they quick enough? Yes, they are quick enough. That is a sensational run. Looked like it was all going south down to the Kreisel, and then somehow he managed to steady the ship. He was 100th ahead of Baumgartner, came down 100 slower. They are tied with 6 to go. Well, that is a PB here for Mickey Vogt. Then 8th yesterday was his previous best in Innsbruck, and a 7th place guaranteed today, no worse than that. And they may yet conceivably move up, because it was a very close battle here. Nico Semler was only 300s behind Patrick Baumgartner, who was only 100th behind Mickey Vogt, who was only 400s behind Frank Del Duca, who was only 600s behind Emil Sepoulis in 5th. Now then, disqualified yesterday because they miscalculated the weight of the sled, the scabbards and the team, and added weight to the sled that took them 5 kilos over before the race. Frank Del Duca with a score to settle, and what a brilliant first run he had, 6th fastest. And this is up against drivers who have got good knowledge of this track. This is his first World Cup season in Europe. He does not know this track. Did race here as a brakeman, but not as a driver. Now let's see if he can lay down another smoker. 5:11 getaway. The boys know he needs every 100th, and they give him another 5:11 start. So his advantage over Mickey Vogt, 400ths of a second. Over Patrick Baumgartner, 500ths of a second. But they've gone behind early on. Needs to avoid any more taps or mistakes. Out of 6, everybody does it. Little skid into the Kreisel, only the 6th best speed. Has to be really good from here on down. This American sled's got a very different shape to the others, but they say it works well in the wind tunnel. We need to find out now. He's 900s back. He's a 10th back. 3rd place is 1600s back. He's going to drop a couple of spots, but across the line, 3rd, 50.64. So he will be no worse than 8th place, Frank Del Duca. His best ever World Cup result, a 6th place finish in Lake Placid. A track that, of course, he knows very much better than this. And that is an 8th place finish. So he'll be disappointed to lose a couple of spots. But that is a very good recovery after a disappointing day yesterday. And 2 good drives from Frank Del Duca. First time here in Innsbruck, looking out the front rather than buried in the back, as he was in the World Champs here in 2016. And
thanks for watching back home, guys.
Hey, listen, work to do, but when it's your first time at the track, there's always going to be work to do. Mickey Vogt and Patrick Baumgartner lead from Frank Del Duca. 5 sleds to go in the race, in the season here in the 4-man competition. Final Latvian hope. World Championship silver medal, Emil Sepoulis. With Davis Springs, Mads Miknes and Edgars Nemmer. 5:02, what a huge getaway. They were fastest in the competition with the 5:02 in the first heat. They matched that. Nice and smooth early on. Oscar Smelbardis, we saw at the bottom, in the middle of the runs. He owns the track record at 4:93 from January 2013. That's not going to be beaten today, but can Sepoulis work his way into the medals? Yesterday he was 3rd after the first heat, fell back. Ooh, squared up 9 to 10. Still a quarter second in hand though. 2600s. He is absolutely flying. Let it go, let it do its thing. 50.34, 50.36 in the first heat. They squeezed every ounce of juice out of the stone. He leads with 4 to go. Well, that was a really nice looking run from Tipoulis. Finished 4th yesterday. 4 more sleds to go. Can he get into the medals? Just a little late exit off 9. Lots of eyes coming off the wall. But down at the bottom, doing as little as possible. That's why the exit of 10 is so critical. It sets you up for 11. If you get on to 11, then the rest should follow. Latvia, Switzerland, Italy. That is your top 3 right now. 4 to go. Marcus Treichel, 1800s out of the medals for Austria, with Sascha Stepan, Marcus Sammer, Opper, and Sebastian Mitterer, the crew. And a medal here at home in the last 4-man of his best season in 4-man would be a huge deal for Marcus Treichel. Finished 5th yesterday, his 5th place of the season. He's barely been any position other than 5th so far. Can he improve on that today? 5:07, the boys give him another fantastic start. Such an experienced crew. 42nd 4-man World Cup start for Marcus Treichel. Marcus Sammer at 3, the man they call Opper, Grandpa, in his 59th 4-man race in Park City. Or was it Lake Placid? He celebrated his 100th World Cup start and still going. Treichel dropping back. 1800s back, 2300s back. It's not medal day today. He's not going to be in the top 6 either. He drops down. Oh, how does he do that? Into 2nd place. I thought he was going to drop behind Vogt and Baumgartner. He will be in the top 6, but he will not be in the medals. Tipoulis leads, Treichel 2nd, Vogt and Baumgartner tied for 3rd with 3 to go. Well, it looks likely that it'll be another 5th place finish for Marcus Treichel. Disappointing maybe to be within almost clutching distance of a medal, and the second heat just not quite to go your way. Maybe when you're not used to being on the podium, just that intensity to try and grab the medal leads to a fraction of overdriving. Well, there was no overdriving from our final 3 sleds in the first heat. Each of them broke the track record in order. The first to do so was Johannes Lochner with his crew, Florian Bauer and Eric Bruckert, and Christian Rasp, who took himself injured out of the World Championships, is back in for the final race of the season. Final 3 sleds cover by 1/10 of a second. They started 5:08 in the first heat. Even 100th could make a big difference here. Ooh, little skid, 5:09. It was 100th, but it was the wrong way, a fraction slower. Nicely out of 2 and into 3. Quiet hands here, doing as little as possible. The crew barely daring to breathe, even though their lungs are screaming. 800s is the lead, down from 12 at the start over Tipoulis. Down to 700s, 3rd best speed. Clean exit off the Kreisel, just about. Best speed for Lochner now. 50.17 was his downtime. The track record is 50.07. I don't think he's going to set a new track record, but he is going to put himself into the medals ahead of Emil Tipoulis with 1 to go. 50.37. Well, that is a long way shy of what he managed in the first heat. 2/10 slower. Probably not aided by Christian Rust popping up there, but they get another medal. So Lochner's season, 5th place, 6th place, I beg your pardon, in Whistler, then silver, then 4th in Lake Placid, bronze and bronze in Winterberg and Altenburg, 4th in Altenburg too, bronze yesterday, no worse than bronze today. No golds in the 4-man, but he is the 2-man world champion. And he will finish in the top 3 in the World Cup rankings as well. And look at that. Nice, quiet hands coming out of corner 9. That's what helped to build the speed at the bottom part of the track. There's Christian Rust. Everybody feeling pretty wrung out after the intensity of 2 weeks of the World Championships. And 2 to go. And this is it for the Crystal Globe. The winner will be Brad Hall or Francesco Friedrich. And basically, whoever wins this race takes the Crystal Globe. It's as simple as that. 300s ahead of Hansi Lochner, 700s behind Francesco Friedrich. Brad Hall, Aaron Gulliver, Taylor Lawrence and Greg Cackett to round out what will be the single best season for British bobsledding in 4-man, I think, in history. A 5:02 getaway. That is the fastest in the competition. They did 5:06 in the first heat, smooth from 4 to 5. Build the lead over Lochner, 1600s, 1900s, third best speed. Needs to be super relaxed down here now. Best speed of all for Brad Hall. Needs a track record. Can he go under 49 seconds? And can he win this from Francesco Friedrich? Little skid from 11 to 12. Down at the bottom, 2 tenths up. He's building the lead across the line, 50.22. At least a silver medal. Only 1 race this year has he not been on the podium. He was in 4th place in Park City. Only 1 race this year has Francesco Friedrich not been on the podium. In 4th place in the first race in Altenburg. Well, the boys gave him everything he needed at the start. Aaron Gulliver, Taylor Lawrence, Greg Cackett dropping in smoothly as Brad steers them into the first corner here. And down at the bottom, that long drift there, taking another couple of hundreds out of the sled. All right.
Hopefully it's enough.
They've done everything they can.
Huh?
Well, there's 2 things here. Francesco Friedrich will be targeting victory, but they will also be targeting a new track record. They will want 50.07 in the first heat. There's no question they want to go sub 50. If anybody's ever going to do a 49 here, it is here and now. It is Francesco Friedrich with Torsten Margis, Candy Bauer and Alex Schiller. Margis looking wrung out with flu after St. Moritz. They get in, get down, 5:04 first heat, 4:99. They just go for everything. Unbelievable. This crew is like a diamond. The more pressure they're under, the brighter they shine. 1700s up. They had 7 over Brad Hall's crew from the first heat. Tap from 6 to 7. Second best speed, a fraction quicker than Brad was at that stage. Brad had top speed here now. Friedrich has better speed. 1900s up and a huge mistake, 9 to 10. Is that going to put it in jeopardy? He had 1900s in the bank. There's only 3 corners left. He's got enough speed left. It is going to be victory. No track record, surely for Friedrich. 50.10, they win it. But it was not textbook. Victory for Francesco Friedrich. That is his 5th win of the season, and he is our World Cup champion. But oh boy, corner 9. 99, a 4:99 start. That's what the boys want. That's what they need to know. Torsten Margis at the back of the sled there, at the far end of the sled, barely stand up. He was absolutely destroyed yesterday. He said he's basically just been to the pharmacy and bought everything. Really struggling with flu, but they are the World Cup champions, and Friedrich does it again. Wow. Epic starting. There's Alex Schiller on the right-hand side. Candy Bauer next up the tunnel. They are so used to winning, these boys. Yesterday, Torsten Margis took his 50th World Cup gold medal. Today, the 51st. He was going to give the little trophy away to friend or family or whatever, and Francesco said, no, 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 that's your 50th win. You need to keep that one. Torsten had no idea. Franz knows everything. Well, what he knows is how to start and how to drive, but exit of corner 9, oh my goodness. The single worst exit of corner 9 we've seen from anybody. Look at this. How did he not give that away? Unbelievable virtuosity. Even with that big stumble midway down the run. Francesco Friedrich and his boys, they are the World Cup champions. And you know what? The smiles would have been as big, the celebrations as big, had Brad Hall won it. Another silver medal for Brad Hall, the best British bobsleigh season in decades. Hansi Lochner takes bronze and will be third in the World Cup rankings. Emil Sepoulis again knocking on the door of the medals, as is Marcus Treichel. Mickey Vogt and Patrick Baumgartner both get a top 6. Frank Del Duca 8th place. What a great run. First time ever on this track. Lots of other first timers, some way behind him in the rest of our top 20. And that is it. That is 4-man done for the season. We have 2-man double race weekend coming up in Sigulda, Latvia next week to round out that and the chase for the Crystal Globe. And there is so much mutual admiration, respect and competition between these two crews. They love it. They genuinely love having each other to knock heads against. 30 points in it. Those 2 first places this weekend for Francesco Friedrich just gave him enough to get across the line ahead of Brad Hall and Johannes Lochner. Marcus Treichel 4th at the end of the season, his best ever. Mickey Vogt likewise, and Christoph Hafer in 6th place. But Cedric Follodor, great season for him and for Emil Sepoulis. And don't forget, Sepoulis and Follodor didn't do all of the World Cup races either. So the rest of our point scorers there. See some of our occasional drivers. Frank Del Duca 12th in the standings. How many World Cup races did he start? Well, certainly not all of them this season. So that's an impressive performance from Frank. And that is it. Our World Cup champion is Francesco Friedrich. He is our winner here, the 8th and final race. He's taken 5 golds, 2 silvers and 1 4th place finish. And he is the best 4-man driver of the season. Join us next week in Sigulda to see whether he can do the same in the 2-man and what happens with Team Brad Hall and Great Britain on the end of their best season ever. Till then, from everybody here, Auf Wiedersehen and goodbye. Okay, along a little to the right. Like this, come on, like this. Like your friends. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, ready when you are.
Franz, Torsten, Candy Alex, another win here and the Crystal Globe. It's been a long, tough season.
Yeah, it was really a long, tough season, and before the run we stand in the start house and say to each other, wow, it's amazingly, so amazing that we are even, or so often was the last ones up in the start house, and yeah, it's great here. We are happy here to win. We are happy to win the Globes. Yeah, it was a good and a tough season, I think.
Fastest man ever down the mountain. And the last run, a 99. Who decided that?
Oh, we all decided
We all
that.
decided,
Yeah.
yeah.
We said, okay, that's not our start time for 5 or 4. We have to go under 5. And yeah, I think Francesco went a little further now, and that was the key to do that.
And what happened in corner 9?
Yeah, I had not the best position in the entrance, and so I was too early high, and the sled falls down a little bit too early, and so you go over the last part and you come to the left side. But yeah, if you are till then fast enough, then it's enough here.
It was enough. Gentlemen, another fantastic season. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey Jungs, Glückwunsch! Hey. Hat sich sehr von gelohnt. Hä? Ja, ihr seid auch nicht anders. Meinst du die Sieger irgendwie so hier, ne? Ist der Sieger bitte?
Yeah, it's great fun. Yeah, very nice. Maybe next year, huh?